Collect spells and gradually establish your own power. Azir, a blue dragon with no inherited spells and a defect in dragon's inheritance. Strictly speaking, he should be considered a half-dragon beast, right? That is, a wise dragon beast. Don't be fooled by the flaws in his dragon lineage, but it actually gave him even stronger power, which gave Azer the Explosive Curse from birth. When Azer was born into this world, the remaining spells also scattered throughout the world and were acquired by certain creatures. Now, what appears in front of Azer is that he is picking up Azer, who is still in the egg, and wants to become the brass dragon who has been talking to the blue dragon for the longest time. Keywords of the novel. Blue Dragon's Magic and Divine Power. No pop-ups. Blue Dragon's Magic and Divine Power TXT Complete Collection Download. Blue Dragon's Magic and Divine Power Latest Chapter Reading. Chapter 1. Blue Dragon Azer and Brass Dragon Gini. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. Blue Dragon Azer and Brass Dragon Gini. The Sataka Desert. At this point, a lost blue dragon egg has reached the last quarter of the incubation period, which means that the embryonic stage chicks inside the dragon egg have begun to have consciousness. The embryonic dragons inside the dragon eggs opened their eyes, revealing a darkness before them. Who turned off the light? How come it's pitch black? While Wang Lei noticed the darkness in front of him, he also found himself covered in a sticky mess all over. Not only that, he also found it difficult to stretch his hands and feet, as if he was bound by something, but it didn't feel like he was tied up with a rope. The feeling of being forcibly stuffed into a suitcase should be this kind of feeling. Wang Lei was at a loss as to why this situation occurred, but when he thought about what had happened before, he seemed to have no reason behind it. He only remembers that the recent incident was when he, who had just finished his internship, was watching an anime called Magic Curse Power with his younger cousin. Then, my own dog bit on the TV for some reason, and I stepped forward to rescue the electrocuted dog. As a result, I also got electrocuted. At the same time, someone said, "Do you want to exchange the blasting spell with me?" Wang Lei, who was electrocuted, agreed directly to the other party without hesitation. Is there such a good thing? This was Wang Lei's idea at the time. Looking back now, perhaps it was because I agreed to the other party that I was trapped here. After all, the other party didn't say anything to exchange for the curse. I should have traveled through my adult life before I even got an electric shock and died on the spot. Wang Lei couldn't help but think. Thinking of this, Wang Lei could only accept the reality he had traveled through. After all, nothing he could do now could change this fact. I just don't know which unknown entity said the explosive curse. When will you give it to me? Suddenly, I feel so sleepy. Let's take a nap first. Wang Lei's body's self-protection mechanism began to take effect. For an embryonic dragon that has not yet been born, excessive thinking can make them feel very tired and want to sleep and rest immediately. Therefore, Wang Lei immediately entered a baby-like sleep. I don't know how long it took, but Wang Lei woke up again. In fact, he could still sleep because he was awakened by something. A young brass dragon was rummaging through the blue dragon egg where Wang Lei was located. As a young dragon, he had a strong desire to collect treasures and establish territories at this age, which prompted him to leave his mother's nest and come to this desert called Sataka. What did I find while searching for a new nest? A blue dragon egg. The name of this young brass dragon is Gini, and he is quite curious about the blue dragon egg he suddenly discovered. After all, as parents, blue dragons are very careful and will not neglect laying eggs. This should be a lost blue dragon cub. Gini continued to play with the blue dragon egg where Wang Lei was located. Fortunately, Wang Lei has reached the last quarter of the incubation period, and even if he opens the egg now, he can still survive. So, Gini's actions cannot harm Wang Lei. He won't beat his egg whites and yolks together like an egg beater. Dragon eggs are not that fragile. Gini himself is aware of this, and as someone with a dragon heritage, he can use some special methods to assess the condition of dragon eggs. Gini's actions were just to disgust Wang Lei in the blue dragon egg. Who made them one a 5-colored dragon and the other a metal dragon? The two are hostile. Moreover, Blue Dragon often bullies, dislikes, Bronze Dragon, and in his own opinion, Gini's actions are venting evil energy for his own kind. Wang Lei, who was still inside the Blue Dragon egg, could only protest against the actions of this young brass dragon by making random movements. It seems that the Blue Dragon cubs in this Blue Dragon egg are already conscious and will resist. It seems that they will hatch soon, Gini chuckled happily. Thinking of this, Gini began to mutter to himself, and a very bold idea came to his mind. My older brother and sister always mock me for being weak. This time, I will give them a good slap in the face. I want to successfully hatch it. And then have a long conversation with the Blue Dragon cubs inside all night, which is something they cannot do. This is much better than talking to humanoid creatures. I am very strong when talking to Blue Dragon. I am the strongest of my brothers and sisters. Yes. I am the strongest. Since I'm so strong, why don't I be bolder? I want to become the longest talking brass dragon with the Blue Dragon in this world. To achieve this goal, Gini immediately came up with two strategies. One type is aimed at real dragons, which are blue dragons that have obtained the inheritance of the dragon. The other type is targeted at dragon beasts, which are blue dragons that have not obtained the inheritance of dragons and only have wildness. The first strategy is that Gini will force Wang Lei to sign a contract before he grows out of his control, allowing him to drive him for hundreds of years. The second strategy, Gini, is to keep Wang Lei as a pet and instill knowledge of metal dragons in the opponent. Dragons that don't understand anything are the easiest dragons to undergo mental transformation. Gini, who had come up with a plan, immediately lifted the Blue Dragon egg where Wang Lei was located and took off, allowing him to embark on the path of searching for a new nest with him. Wang Lei, who was in the Blue Dragon egg, saw that he was not being played with as before and continued to sleep. When Wang Lei woke up again, the young brass dragon Gini had found a new nest. He built the nest on a high rock cave, which was the place where brass dragons like to build nests. As for why Wang Lei woke up, it was because this Blue Dragon egg was almost unable to accommodate him. The slight squeezing sensation made him feel a bit uncomfortable, as if there were ants crawling on him. Wang Lei, who continued to stay inside the Blue Dragon egg for a while, constantly woke up and fell asleep, began to feel impatient. In the end, he began to attack the pitch-black space that bound his body and caused a scene inside the Blue Dragon egg. This scene was witnessed by Gini, who had just returned from foraging. He couldn't wait to see the birth of the Blue Dragon chick inside the Blue Dragon egg, which would be a historic moment for him. After struggling in the Blue Dragon egg for about 2 minutes, Wang Lei finally broke through the eggshell and successfully arrived in this world. The Blue Dragon chicks slowly exposed themselves to the young brass dragon Gini, holding their eggshells. At the moment when the Blue Dragon chick appeared in this world, he found his body somewhat uncontrollable and spat out some language that ordinary people could not understand, which was dragon language. Azir Ramses. Due to being identified as a fan, this book had to replace the original elements with new concepts. Magic Curse, also known as Fu Curse, end of this chapter. Chapter 2. Azer's Explosive Curse. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2 Azer's Explosive Curse, Azir Ramses. At the moment when Azer revealed his true name of the dragon and kept talking, he received a wealth of knowledge from this world, which meant he was not a blue dragon beast, but a true blue dragon. However, Azer's real name is not complete. The names of the true dragons on this main material plane are composed of XXX, XXX, XXX. Obviously, his dragon lineage is missing something, such as knowledge of spells. However, this is not entirely a bad thing, it can only be said to have both advantages and disadvantages. The downside is that in the future, Azer will have to learn spells like humans and other races, starting from the most basic knowledge, which is definitely a quite troublesome thing. The advantage is that his knowledge of spells has brought him something more useful for himself now. As Azir shouted out the true name of the dragon, the power of the curse appeared on certain creatures on this main material plane. Creatures that possess magical powers can sense their positions and have the ability to absorb spells imprinted within the owner's body through close-range casting. The closest animal to Azer was himself, who obtained the explosive curse. After all, it was he who made a deal with an unknown existence and brought the curse to this main material plane. Otherwise, the one with the explosive curse should be the strongest red dragon in this world. The explosive curse has a powerful explosive ability, and its internal power is called the explosive divine power. And flames, on the other hand, are a medium for releasing the power of explosion, a byproduct of the curse of explosion. Now, with the explosive curse, Azir can no longer only unleash the lightning breath of the blue dragon, but also unleash the flame breath with explosive effects. The effect of all spells will increase with the user's strength. As a blue dragon chick, Azir's attacks released through the explosive spell can rival the flame breathing of a teenage red dragon. Azer, who possesses the explosive curse, is not even a terrifying enemy in front of him, even a young brass dragon. Ramses, then what? The young brass dragon was puzzled by the strange behavior of the blue dragon chick. Why have you been waiting for half a day without producing anything? Faced with the question raised by the young brass dragon, Azir answered the other person well. Azir, who lived in a peaceful era before his time travel, did not dislike the existence of the brass dragon. Even under the influence of the dragon's inheritance, his three views remained unchanged. If possible, he still wants to be a good person like before. But if anything changes him, he can't guarantee it, he still holds grudges. And then it's gone. There seems to be a problem with my dragon inheritance. Azir removed most of the truth and kept a small part of it. Where exactly is the problem? The talkative brass Longini was quite curious about it. Azir replied, first of all, the real name of the dragon, which obviously lacks the last surname, which is also why I keep talking non-stop. It's indeed quite problematic, Gini agreed. The full name of the young brass dragon Gini is Gini Tamabibi Leviathan, which conforms to the real name format of all real dragons on his main plane. After agreeing with Azir's words, Gini continued, speaking of which, are you not afraid of me, blue dragon cub? I am a powerful young brass dragon, and when you see me and the great Lord Gini, you should beg for mercy. Please spare your life. Although most wise men believe that the brass dragon is the most humble dragon among all dragons, the rap of the brass dragon is actually a form of dragon arrogance, as it is now. While speaking, Gini was carefully observing the blue dragon chick in front of him, called Azir. He felt that the blue dragon chick in front of him was somewhat different from what he had seen in his dragon lineage. If you were to say what dragon blue dragon hates the most, it would naturally be brass dragon, no one. The overlapping environments that blue dragon and bronze dragon prefer to live in, coupled with the opposition between five-colored dragon and metal dragon, as well as the frivolous style, chaotic camp, and tendency of bronze dragon to flee, make blue dragon quite disgusted with bronze dragon. As long as you beg for mercy, you can be forgiven. No matter which world it is, it's not that easy. Azir felt the other person's words were a bit funny. As long as you beg for mercy, I will definitely spare your life now. We can discuss this matter after we have finished. Can you continue to talk about any other issues with your dragon inheritance? Although I said I would spare your life, I didn't say I didn't want you to sign a contract with me, please, I really want to hear it. Or rather, dear Lord Blue Dragon, shouldn't you be unable to explain such a simple matter clearly? Gini showed Azir how simple it is to seek a dragon. Azir. Your brass dragon is too oily, it's a bit disgusting. Just act like you're playing with a child, treating yourself like a blue dragon chick that's powerless against the current situation. Since you have asked sincerely, I can tell you with great compassion. My dragon inheritance seems to have lost all my spell knowledge, which means that I can only acquire knowledge from scratch in the future. Upon hearing Azir's answer, Gini showed a pitiful expression, but his words sounded as if he was mocking Azir. He smiled regretfully. TSK, that's really a pity, poor Azir. Do you need the help of knowledgeable Lord Gini? Do you need Lord Gini's help to master the magical cultivation required to be a true dragon? If you only ask the great Lord Gini, you can obtain these valuable knowledge. Is it true that as long as I ask you, I can get them? Azir asked with a smile. Although Azir's actions may seem strange to Gini, unlike a normal blue dragon, he believes that Azir still genuinely questions how difficult it is for a dragon without spells to navigate in this world. So, Gini smiled and nodded. Yes, as long as you ask the great Lord Gini to teach you. The words of the young brass dragon made Azir laugh. He couldn't help but continue to play with the other party. He laughed. Who wants to learn some breaking magic from you, young dragon? Why don't I find a way to find other older blue dragon schools? Azir laughed heartily and said, You asked me to beg you. I'm sorry. I don't ask anyone. I didn't immediately fight with you. I've seen through your thoughts. What unequal contract do you want me to sign with you, right? You are the dragon who should sign the unequal contract. Gini. After speaking, Azir activated the effect of the explosive spell and spat out a flame with explosive effects from his mouth. Seeing Gini in flames, I fell into shock. You're not right. Isn't blue dragon's breathing like lightning breathing? End of this chapter. Chapter 3. The Bronze Dragon Falling from the Blast Curse. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. The Bronze Dragon Falling from the Blast Curse. After Azir spat out flames with explosive effects, two thoughts came to Gini's mind. First, he forcefully took the other person's breath and showed them his strength. As a true fire dragon, the brass dragon has extremely high resistance to flames, and can even be immune to flames when the opponent's strength is lower than oneself to a certain extent. The difference between newborn baby dragons and young bronze dragons is precisely the degree to which they can be immune to vomiting. In the first hour of birth, the young dragon still needs to digest the knowledge passed down by the dragon and adapt its body to the world outside the eggshell. Therefore, the young dragon must be born for at least 1 hour in order to truly possess the combat power of the true young dragon, which is also known as the weak period of birth. Even the flame exhalation of a red dragon born less than an hour ago has little effect on a young bronze dragon. Its body has not fully adapted to the outside world, and the temperature of the flames it sprays is not much higher. Some embarrassing guys can only exhale breath that is the size of a torch. This is the reason why Gini would forcefully take Azir's breath. And his other idea is to avoid it. The instinct of being a dragon tells him that this exhalation is very dangerous. As a brass dragon who likes to solve problems with words, Gini naturally followed his subconscious and chose the second option, avoiding Azir's half-aimed breath. Gini, who did not directly take Azir's breath but was felt by the flame temperature, felt that Azir's flame temperature was only so, and believed that he had been deceived by his own instincts. Oh, what kind of flame breathing is this? Even a roasted egg is not cooked. However, in the next moment, Azir's explosive power released through his dragon breath hit the rock wall of Gini's new nest. You know, the effect of the explosive curse is explosive. How could this ordinary rock wall withstand the explosive power of the blasting curse? So, Gini, who had lived in this cozy little nest for about 2 months, was blown out by Azir with a huge hole. The shattered rock produced by the explosion happened to fly to the back of Gini's head, causing him to fall into a brief dizziness. At this moment, the two dragons were shrouded in a large amount of dust and mist. Azir blew a hard breath, dispelling the dust and mist from Gini's lair, allowing them to bask in the morning sunlight. Now, Gini can not only enjoy the sunlight shining into the nest from the east, but also the sunlight shining in from the southeast and northeast. After a brief dizziness, Gini recovered and shook his dusty head, only to find that his nest seemed much brighter than usual. No. My lair. The young brass dragon, who spoke so, did not put any thought into his nest, but instead focused on the treasures he had accumulated since leaving his mother's nest, which he had received as gifts from passing humanoid creatures. After careful examination by Gini, he found that his treasure, which was pitifully scarce compared to the older dragon, had not been damaged in any way, and Azir's dragon talisman breath did not blow up his treasure trove together. Thank you, Platinum Dragon God, Gini breathed a sigh of relief. At this moment, a strange sound came into his ears. Dear Lord Gini, you are so generous that you invited me to visit your treasure trove. Azir smiled not far behind Gini and said, Lord Gini is quite wealthy. He has 50 gold coins, which are worth 1 pound, about 0.45 kilograms, of gold. Upon hearing Azir's voice, Gini remembered the blue dragon chick that had caused serious damage to his nest. He was so frightened that he quickly ran away with his 50 gold coins. He doesn't care if he will lose face by doing so. When faced with stronger beings than himself, Huang Tonglong basically adopts a retreat strategy. Azir, who was able to unleash such terrifying dragon breath, was naturally listed by him as a stronger existence than himself. Facing a stronger presence than oneself, running away is not shameful, and even commendable. The unintelligent guy, Azir sneered as he looked at Gini about to take off. Since the other party is so unintelligent, there is no need for me to show any mercy. Therefore, Azir decided to use the power of the explosive spell to shoot down this young bronze dragon from the air. He didn't intend to miss out on this one, the last time he just gave the opponent a warning. Not long after Gini took off with his 50 gold coins, Azer once again unleashed the power of the explosive curse. The divine power of the explosive curse flowed out from his dragon lungs and then flowed down his respiratory tract to his mouth. A large amount of explosive flames spewed out of his dragon mouth, directly shooting at the brass dragon Gini more than 10 meters away from Azer. Quickly, this flame hit the young brass dragon and blew him down from the sky. Before having a chance to put those 50 gold coins into the genie stored in his stomach, he performed a scene for Azir, what is called a dragon throwing money. A few seconds later, Gini fell heavily to the ground, startling away some nearby rattlesnakes. Seeing the young brass dragon being shot down by him, Azir felt quite satisfied, but his stomach coincidentally rang. He had not eaten anything in this world, including his first meal as a giant dragon. His eggshell. However, it is obviously not a good time to eat now. If this young brass dragon runs away while he is eating eggshells, he will suffer greatly, which will make him lose a guy who can take care of his daily life. So Azir jumped directly from the high cave. Although the dragon born within an hour did not have the ability to fly, it still had the ability to glide. Azir rode the wind to the top of Gini's young brass dragon crash and circled a few times before landing on the sand. Azir cautiously approached the young brass dragon lying on the ground, ready to once again unleash the magic of the dragon spell. Although he doesn't think the other party will pretend to be dead like a dragon, it's always right to be cautious. After all, he's just a blue dragon chick, and compared to his own attack power, he's actually high in attack and low in defense. When the distance between the two sides was close enough, Azir found that the young brass dragon in front of him was sobbing, without any desire to resist him. Seeing this, he comforted the divine power of the explosive curse and made it cool down. This young brass dragon, who had just emerged from his mother's nest, clearly had never suffered such an injury before. He cried in pain from the pain caused by his severely injured body. Helpless Gini's mind is full of thoughts about his parents, hoping that they can come out to help him at this moment. Perhaps this is the difference between a young metal dragon and a young five-color dragon. In a sense, the offspring cultivated by the five-color dragon are stronger than those cultivated by the metal dragon. Because the existence that the five-colored dragon can absolutely believe in is only themselves. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. The young brass dragon should be a cow and a horse for the blue dragon's young dragons for 200 years. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. The young brass dragon should be a cow and a horse for the blue dragon's young dragons for 200 years. Lord Gini, why are you running around when you're free? Alright, now, let's take a look at your current appearance. You're injured. Originally, I didn't intend to harm you either, it was because your escape made you look like this. Your bad habit of fleeing from the battlefield, the brass dragon, really needs to be corrected. Genie didn't fully believe Azur's words because when facing a dragon, he had to prepare for the worst, even the more reasonable blue and green dragons. What do you want? Genie suppressed her tears and asked. Of course, I want to treat you the way you treat me in your mind. I've mentioned before what kind of unequal contract you want me to sign and what kind of oath you want me to make, right? This way, it's easier for you to control me. After all, you talkative brass dragons love talking. Even any creature that can put two syllables together would want to talk to them. Talking to the hostile 5-color dragon and blue dragon for a long time can even make you raise your eyebrows and vent your anger in front of other brass dragons. Our blue dragon always can't help but beat you guys who keep talking nonsense. Upon hearing Azur's answer, Genie exclaimed, this is impossible. How dare you enslave a brass dragon? Of course it's possible, after all, the Sataka Desert is the territory of our blue dragon. Azur smiled. In Azur's dragon heritage, the Sataka Desert has always been the territory of the blue dragon, with an elderly blue dragon ruling over the Sataka Desert and serving as the leader of the blue dragon clan. Genie shook his head and said, no, the Sataka Desert is no longer the territory of the blue dragon. It now belongs to an area without rulers, and that old blue dragon has been annihilated by many legendary warriors' armies last year. Information has timeliness, and the dragon inheritance obtained by Azir is information from the reign of the old blue dragon. When he was laid as a blue dragon egg, the information within the dragon inheritance stopped updating and replacing. Upon hearing this news, Azur's face couldn't help but change. However, he didn't pay much attention to this matter either. Azir smiled at Genie and said, that's really great. Then there won't be any older blue dragon who cares about what I do. Freedom is a precious thing. Is there no area belonging to any rulers here? It's not impossible for me to make this desert my territory in the future. Are you not afraid that other metal dragons will discover that you have enslaved me? Genie asked again. As long as you don't say it, I don't say it. Who knew I enslaved you? A blue dragon chick enslaved a young brass dragon. If you say this, who would believe it? Those who believe this must have abnormal brains. They will only believe that you have enslaved me. Look at your decent body proportions, and then look at me. With a big head and big feet, can this posture really be a dragon that can enslave other dragons? Azur's words made Genie lose the idea of continuing to use words to save freedom and stop talking. It's done. This time it's really not possible to enslave the other party, I have been enslaved instead. I want you to serve me for 500 years. Genie shook his head repeatedly and said, this is impossible. Then I might as well die directly. After being bound for 500 years, when the deadline arrives, I will be an old dragon. I can't accept this. I hope this can reduce the time I am enslaved. If he really insists, I will have to die or accept it. Genie, it seems like you don't have much choice. Just let me show mercy. How about 300 years? In 300 years, you'll just be a strong dragon. Azur was really afraid that this young brass dragon would cut itself in place, as the other party was a very good natural arrow blocking card for him. If it's 300 years, then you definitely don't need me anymore. You must have established your own family. If you have one more brass dragon, it won't be much, but if you have one less brass dragon, it will accompany you to grow into a mature dragon. How about it? After you fall asleep, our contract term will be terminated. Genie directly cut the term to just over 200 years. If it weren't for fear of provoking Azir, Genie would like to chop a little more. Okay, then when I enter the era of the strong dragon, our contract will come to an end here, Azur said with a very ugly expression. In fact, Azir's bottom price is 100 years, which is when he becomes an adult dragon. Adult 5-color dragons, except for adult white dragons, can generally live quite well as long as they are not too flamboyant or do things too aggressively. A normal adult blue dragon may not necessarily win against an ordinary legendary solo player, but it is unlikely to be easily caught in the opponent's hands in a 1-on-1 battle. However, if we include the monster clan of the blue dragon, they are basically invincible. Gini added, I have one more condition, which is not to allow you to ask me to harm someone I don't want to harm, nor to let me do evil things that only your 5-color dragons can do. Don't touch my 50 gold coins. I know, this is the bottom line for you self-proclaimed righteous metal dragons. Azir nodded and said, I agree. Immediately afterwards, Azir had Gini start swearing to the dragon gods. Now, start swearing. Due to the fact that Azir and his companions do not have any contract paper from the gods and do not know how to draw up contracts through magic, they can only make contracts by swearing to the gods. As a dragon, I naturally have to swear to the dragon gods. I'll start right away. Before Gini could finish speaking, Azir stopped him. Wait. What's going on? Gini wondered. The person you swear to must be designated by me. If you swear to the Platinum Dragon God, I don't think the other party will definitely accept this contract, and there may even be some metal dragons sent to help you get out of trouble. Upon hearing Azir's words, Gini thought the other party was going to make him swear to the dragon god, the 5-color dragon queen Tiamat. No. I can't swear to the god of your 5-color dragon. In Gini's view, Tiamat was a rather taboo entity to mention. After all, he swore to shout out the name of the deity at the same time, which might attract the gaze of the dragon god. He didn't want to see such a terrifying existence. Azir shook his head and said, I didn't say anything, I want you to swear to that person. Existences like him are called alien dragons, and the alien dragons in the 5-color dragons are generally not well liked by Tiamat. After all, Tiamat is often attacked by these alien dragons. If Tiamat had known about his existence, he might have controlled himself while he was still weak. So, Azer chose a neutral dragon god as the object of Gini's oath. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Azir with cold face and hot heart. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Azir with cold face and hot heart. In the dragon god system, there are neutral dragon gods, including the goddess of creation. Atharina, goddess of wealth. Esterabo, goddess of fate. Curanopus, goddess of decay, god of death. Pharazir, goddess of justice. Landis, goddess of life. Tamara, as well as the king of the gods in the dragon god system. The 9-faced dragon god. Io. There are a total of 11 dragon gods in the dragon god family, and 8 dragon gods with neutral factions. However, this does not mean that they are all absolutely neutral dragon gods. Some of them are law-abiding, neutral, kind, neutral, evil, and chaotic. In order to avoid any issues with the contract, Azir chose 3 dragon gods from the absolutely neutral camp, namely the goddess of wealth, the god of fate, and the 9-faced dragon god. Azir felt that there was no need to find the dear 9-faced dragon god for this small matter between him and Gini, so the 9-faced dragon god option was excluded. Among the remaining goddess of wealth and the god of fate, the god of fate was also excluded, as the other party was basically not in charge. He only observed what, and only major events that would shake the entire universe could make other expressions appear on his indifferent face. So, Azir made Gini swear to become the goddess of wealth. Esterabo, who was also the dragon god who issued a large number of contracts. After all, he was a dragon god who held the position of wealth, and wealth was closely related to transactions. Regardless of whether it is any dragon, they will basically carve the emblem of this goddess on their treasure trove as a protective barrier, and the emblem of the goddess of wealth is a 12-sided gemstone. Gini, swear to our goddess of wealth. Is it the goddess of wealth? I understand. Gini nodded and then shouted in dragon language into the sky, I, Gini Tamabibi Leviathan, swear in the name of the goddess of wealth, Esterabo, to serve the blue dragon chick in front of me, called Azer Ramses, with an unknown surname for 200 years, the other party will not violate the conditions I have proposed. Gini is not sure if the goddess of wealth can recognize his oath. After all, Azurban dragons are not aware of their complete dragon name. Quickly, Gini made his oath and received a response from the goddess of wealth. The response of the goddess of wealth appeared directly in the minds of Azer and Gini. The oath has been established. Upon learning the news, Gini immediately dragged his severely injured body and slowly crawled on the sand, searching for his lost 49 gold coins. After being hit by the divine power released by the blasting spell, he only had time to catch 1 gold coin. Azir arrived in front of Gini. What do you want to do? Let's talk about it first. I can't give you my 50 coins. Gini thought the other party was here to grab his own coins. When do you need to find the coins with your appearance? Azer suggested, you should go back to your nest and rest, and I will help you find the coins. Are you here to help me find it? Is this good for you? Don't forget the conditions I proposed, which the goddess of wealth has acknowledged. When it comes to money, whether it's the evil dragon or the good dragon, they will all show excitement. Azir replied, what? Can't I just let this young dragon get addicted to money? I also want to try counting coins. Are you really not going to secretly hide some of my coins and say you can't find them? Azer clenched his paws into a fist and struck Gini's forehead vigorously. I mean, is there something wrong with your young brass dragon's brain? This is a promise made to the goddess of wealth. This goddess hates theft the most. If I really want to do this, I might have to take the divine punishment. Yes, the goddess of wealth cannot tolerate any kind of theft, and no matter what the thief steals, she will be quite angry. Oh, why is your blue dragon cub punching so hard? Gini was hurt by Azer's punch. Perhaps it's because I shed a hint of red dragon blood, as one of my ancestors was a hybrid of blue and red dragons. Upon hearing Azer's answer, Gini began to deeply doubt Azer's breathing power. Even if you have the blood of a red dragon and have the ability to breathe out flames, shouldn't it have such great power? It even has an explosive effect. Did you notice it? Azer thought to himself. Then I'm not sure why. However, being able to breathe like that, I'm also very tired now. Azer pretended to be a bit tired. He cannot tell anyone about the curse. Really? Forget it, I'll just lie down in the sand below my nest and rest. I just don't know how long this kind of injury can last. Gini's implied meaning was to tell Azer that he wouldn't hunt for Azer until he recovered from his injury. Let me ask you a question, Gini. What do you think dragon meat tastes like? Azer smiled. Gini swallowed with some fear and chuckled, I don't think eating meat of the same kind is a good behavior. What do you think of the camels in the desert? I think it's pretty good. Gini smiled awkwardly and politely, if you think it's good, then tomorrow's meal will be camel meat. Camel meat. That's really exciting. Little sample, fight with me, there's no door. Even if you can't fly, you have to climb over and hunt for me. After the two dragons discussed what to eat tomorrow, they went to separate tasks. Gini accelerated his recovery by sleeping, while Azer helped the other party retrieve the 49 lost coins. Due to the dragon's keen sense of smell for treasures, Azer only spent about half an hour finding the 49 gold coins scattered on the sand in the vast sea of sand. If any unexpected events occurred during this period, it may cause a lot of trouble. After finding the 49 gold coins, Azer woke up the sleeping Gini and sprinkled them on the other person's face. He said expressionlessly, give it back to you, I'm tired of playing. Seeing Azer's appearance, Gini thought of the other person's previous behavior that was somewhat different from that of a normal blue dragon, and couldn't help but say, Azer, you are really strange. How could a dragon get tired of playing with gold coins? Azir didn't care about Gini's words and asked, "If it's not strange, do you have the ability to make a divine oath?" "That's right." Gini nodded and then collected all the coins that fell to the ground. He quickly checked them with his dragon pupils and smiled, "The number is just right, I think." Azer interrupted Gini, who wanted to continue talking to him. "I won't tell you so much. I haven't eaten my first meal yet, I'm starving to death." After speaking, Azer entered Gini's cave nest in a semi-climbing and semi-jumping manner. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Blue Dragon's Wilderness. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. Blue Dragon's Wilderness. Azir, who entered the cave nest again, immediately arrived at the place where he had broken his shell and tasted his eggshell as food. This was the first meal of being born into a dragon. Longdan eggshell can provide enough important minerals for dragons, and it can also prevent them from eating their brothers and sisters in the same nest after birth, so that they will not bleed at this time. This not only ensures that the cub has a sufficient amount of important minerals, but also provides an alternative to attacking and eating its littermates. Most dragons make their first meal with their eggshells, but there are also a small number of dragons who do not make their first meal with eggshells. Such dragons either have good parents, such as the red bronze dragon, and the first meal they give to their offspring is a modified version of the centipede and scorpion. The other small portion of dragons were hatched by other races who coveted dragon egg materials. Dragons are all treasures. As soon as the blue eggshell entered Azer's mouth, he tasted a strange sensation that seemed somewhat familiar. Does it feel like jumping candy because blue dragon is good at lightning? Speaking, Azer grabbed another piece of eggshell and put it into his mouth. Indeed, it feels like jumping candy, but for the blue dragon, if a human cub eats this eggshell, their mouth may be electrocuted. The lightning element contained in the eggshell is too stimulating for them. After finishing his eggshell, Azer did not feel that feeling of fullness. Many believe that top predators like dragons are carnivores, but in reality, they are omnivores, which is also why dragons eat their own eggshells for their first meal. Let's eat dirt, Azer made this decision. Can dragons eat dirt? Of course that's possible. These guys who were born at the top of the food chain can eat anything, even Gini's cave and nest can be eaten. Among the 5-colored dragons and metal dragons, the dragon that eats the most inorganic substances is the brass dragon. Huangtonglong's favorite environment is the desert environment, but there are too few things to eat in the desert, and they don't want to let such a fragile environment bear heavier pressure. So, they usually make a living by eating inorganic substances and morning dewdrops, which sounds like a fairy who doesn't eat human fireworks. After deciding to eat the soil, Aza came down from Gini's lair. He couldn't continue to harm the opponent's lair, as the magic of the dragon's spell had already damaged it unsightly enough. After he arrived at the ground, the young brass dragon, who had taken a nap, opened his eyes again. "Did you wake up?" Azer asked. "I guess so, you're the blue dragon." It's quite difficult for the bronze dragon to get used to having such a blue dragon living by their side. Gini woke up only after feeling Azer's breath. "That's really sorry, but you must get used to it." After speaking, Azer grabbed the sand and stuffed it into his mouth without hesitation. "Did you accept eating sand so quickly? It's not like your blue dragon personality. I thought you came down to catch those little snakes and scorpions in the desert. Unless you can't catch them, you'll think of eating sand directly." Azer frowned slightly and said, "Brass dragon, you have said too much. If you talk again, I suggest you go catch those little snakes and scorpions you mentioned and give them to me now. Then I should rest well." Gini smiled awkwardly. "Reality should be the opposite, right?" After interrupting the brass dragon who wanted to talk, Azir continued to eat sand. Speaking of which, blue dragon already has a smell of sand or ozone on its body, so Azer didn't feel any discomfort with the smell of sand, as long as he didn't chew it and swallowed it directly for the powerful dragon's stomach to digest. Overall, swallowing sand directly feels much better than eating vegetables or turtles. Afterwards, Azer ate a considerable amount of sand before finally feeling very full. Compared to eating sand, he still prefers meat, but now there is no meat to eat. If there were enough prey, most dragons would eat meat equivalent to half their own weight every day, and in some cases even eat meat that exceeds their own weight. This would not make the dragons die, their stomach juice can help them digest easily. Will they not gain weight if they overeat like this? Of course it will, but that is a very small number. These energies, which are higher than the energy needed to supply the body for growth, will be converted into elemental energy by the dragon and stored. The energy used for vomiting comes from the food consumed during binge eating. So, this is also the reason why Azer has to eat himself full even when he eats sand. This can allow him to obtain a large amount of minerals. You should know that Blue Dragon is classified as a soil-type true dragon, among the 4 elements of wind, fire, water, and soil. Its effect of eating sand is much stronger than other 5-color dragons, and their conversion rate of sand is much higher than other 5-color dragons. However, most dragons believe that eating dirt and sand is a shameful thing, and dragons prefer pleasure in satisfying their appetite more than good dragons. This also leads to many 5-colored dragons only eating inorganic substances such as sand when absolutely necessary. This is actually a mistake, as directly consuming inorganic substances can help them obtain richer minerals. After Azer finished eating the sand, the talkative brass dragon couldn't help but speak again. He had been staring at Azer before and had never chosen to continue resting due to his injuries. How does sand taste? Not much, but I will see them as a good medicine for my growth, Azer replied seriously. You're such a strange blue dragon, even though I've said it many times, I still have to say it. Am I weird? On the contrary, I think I'm normal, but my ancestors are even more weird. There are chaotic and neutral red dragons, neutral and evil blue dragons, and even chaotic and kind red dragons and orderly and neutral blue dragons inside. After hearing Azer's words, Gini burst into laughter and said, "Oh, then your actions are not strange. Even, I hope you become a blue dragon like those 2 of your strangest ancestors. It depends on what my dragon life will be like. Perhaps due to suffering too much pain, I will become disgusted with the world and become the terminator of the world. No, you definitely won't. You will definitely become a great blue dragon, as long as you restrain the evil nature of the blue dragon. I can tell from your behavior style that you are a much friendlier blue dragon than other blue dragons." Gini didn't want to witness the birth of a world destroyer with his own eyes. No one can say for sure about the future, but if we talk about it now, I hope to become the rightful king of this desert. Tomorrow should be able to start double shifts, right? End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Female Sphinx, Female Sphinx. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7 Female Sphinx, Female Sphinx, is this the Emperor of the Desert? It's really a good goal. I hope I can witness it during the 200 years of serving you. Azer smiled and said, let's wait and see. As long as I have enough curses, conquering this desert is not a difficult task. Speaking of spells, there are 2 closest spells to Azer, located near the Sataka Desert. However, he doesn't intend to run out and take them away directly. Even if he has the explosive spell to run around, it's just seeking death. The blue dragon chick is not a powerful creature in this world, and other intelligent creatures won't mind being a dragon slayer once. After Azer finished his conversation with Gini, he dug up his own nest in the nearby sand. Blue dragons often build nests at the bottom of cliffs that have accumulated sand blown by the wind. And below Gini's cave nest, there is a place similar to the bottom of the cliff. This is not entirely sand, but there is still normal soil below the sand. This place where underground caves can be excavated is suitable for blue dragons to build nests. This also leads to the entrance of the blue dragon's lair often being filled with sand, but they don't put in much effort to clean and reinforce the entrance with spells, which can sometimes bring them unexpected joy. This is the main reason why some unlucky people fall into the blue dragon's nest. Due to Azir not needing to dig his treasure storage room, his nest is much narrower than other blue dragon chicks, looking like a small, single dragon room. During the excavation process, Azir needs to constantly transport the excess soil generated by the excavation, otherwise his single dragon room would have no place for him to stand. Just as the blue dragon chicks were transporting the second to last batch of soil out of their nest and onto the ground, they saw a powerful monster recorded in the dragon's inheritance flying towards him and Gini. Oh, this is not good at all. How could it be a female-faced Sphinx? Azir exclaimed in his heart. Sphinx, speaking by this name alone, many people may not know what kind of monster it is, but when it comes to the human-faced Sphinx, most people should be able to understand what kind of monster it is. This type of monster is divided into male and female faces, and the strength of male faces is generally much stronger than that of female faces, making them comparable to adult red dragons. Although they are male and female, in reality, they are not monsters that can reproduce with other similar species. A small portion of the Sphinx are high-ranking priests created by the gods, while the majority are manifested by spirits and enter the mortal world through devout prayer or divine intervention. The purpose of their existence is to guard the secrets and treasures left by the gods on the main material plane. Creatures participating in the test, unless they pass or are stronger than the Sphinx, will be killed by the guarded Sphinx. Generally speaking, Sphinx will fulfill its guardianship duties and will not sleep, rest, or eat, and will not easily leave the place it guards. During the time when Azer was digging his nest, the young brass dragon did not fall asleep. Every time Azer carried excess soil to the ground, he would talk to the other person for a few words. Gini noticed Azer's fear of the female-faced Sphinx and comforted her, saying, Azir, you keep doing your job. I'll handle this female-faced Sphinx. She's the best friend I've had in the 2 months since I moved here, so you don't have to worry about what she's done to you. If that's the case, then I can rest assured. Why is Azer afraid that this female-faced Sphinx will harm him? Isn't Sphinx only able to harm those who attack themselves and test those who fail? This has to start from many years ago. In Azer's dragon heritage, it is recorded that the female-faced Sphinx of the Sataka desert was expelled by the elderly blue dragon who had previously ruled the desert. It is said that this elderly blue dragon has undergone multiple tests by the female-faced Sphinx, but he has all failed. The female-faced Sphinx felt that she had given too many opportunities, so she refused the nth test of the elderly blue dragon and did not allow the other party to take the test again. The elderly blue dragon, who had failed multiple tests, knew that he could no longer accept the test. In the end, he was furious and drove away the other party, taking away the things guarded by the female-faced Sphinx. And this also laid the foundation for this relatively conservative elderly blue dragon, which led to him being hunted down before Azer was born. The things guarded by Sphinx cannot be snatched randomly. This is something that the gods have entrusted them to guard. This old blue dragon has angered the gods. The young brass dragon greeted the flying female-faced Sphinx from a distance in common language. Tarna, what brought you here? I usually go to find you, but you come to me. This is the first time I've seen you. Even if the thing protected by the female-faced Sphinx is no longer there, she still returned to her original place after the old blue dragon was hunted down. After hearing the young brass dragon greeting her on the ground in the distance, the female Sphinx replied, Gini, are you okay? I saw something shot down in your direction before. I think the what thing you're talking about should be me. Upon hearing the reply of the young brass dragon, the female-faced Sphinx couldn't help but accelerate her flight speed. 2 seconds later, she saw clearly the appearance of the young brass dragon lying on the ground. Oh, Gini, how could you be hurt like this? It's really pitiful. Gini replied, actually, it's okay, it's just that I can't fly for the time being. I can't die, and I should be able to recover in a while. The dragon's self-healing ability is very powerful. Quickly, the female Sphinx approached the young brass dragon and examined his injuries. She said with some regret, unfortunately, I am not a priest, but a mage who is proficient in defense and identification. Otherwise, I could have cured you immediately. It's not your fault. Before the young brass dragon could finish speaking, the female face Sphinx noticed Azur, who had transported the last batch of soil to the ground, and roared loudly, "Blue dragon." Gini calmly explained, "Tarna, don't get angry. He's my servant, a blue dragon beast. He's currently learning how to build his own nest." Azer heard that the young brass dragon had arranged such an identity for him, and he could only accept it. He pretended to be a dragon beast that knew nothing and let out a wild roar at the female face Sphinx. "Azir. Gini, you better have something to do." So that's what happened. Female Sphinx let go of her hostility towards Azir. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Azir believes he was most likely a hallucination. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. Azir believes he was most likely a hallucination when she saw Azer, the female face Sphinx recalled that bad memory. Rather than being bad memories, it is more accurate to say that the blue dragon failed its mission, which is unacceptable for the dedicated Sphinx, as they were born to protect something. Even a fallen Sphinx would go crazy about it. After letting go of her hostility towards Azir, the female face Sphinx continued to converse with the young brass dragon. "Speaking of which, Gini, what was the reason you were shot down? What exactly hit you?" In this regard, Gini quickly fabricated a long string of half-true and half-false words, just like Azir's previous answer to Gini, removing most of the truth and retaining a small part of it. "I encountered a teenage red dragon who shot me down from the air with his breath." Youth red dragon. Upon hearing these words, the female Sphinx quickly flew into the air and looked around. After confirming the absence of the red dragon, she returned to Gini's presence. "How did you escape the opponent's clutches?" Gini replied, "This is naturally using the flight speed of our metal dragon. Our metal dragon's flight speed is ahead of the 5-colored dragons, and his flight speed is not faster than mine. I am the fastest in our nest. When I was shot down, I was already quite far away from him. I don't know where I offended him, but I kept a distance from dragons like him. Fortunately, that guy's patience wasn't very good. I didn't find the burrow and flew away, otherwise I wouldn't be able to see you now. You're really lucky to have met such a red dragon," replied the female Sphinx with a skeptical expression. "I always feel like there's something wrong, but I can't say for sure. However, it must be Red Dragon who injured Gini. His injuries are only burns and falls. I've always been good luck," Kinian said with his head down. "Don't be stingy, if you're really lucky, you won't encounter the Red Dragon." The female face Sphinx shook her head and said, "Gini, although I can't use spells to heal your injuries, if you need help, I think you can just bring it up." "Thank you so much, dear Tarna," Gini smiled and said, "I don't think I can recover so quickly just by eating sand. It would be best if I could give some meat so that I can recover faster." After finishing this sentence, Gini looked at Azur, who was still busy living, and smiled. "It seems a bit bad to let a young dragon only eat dirt." The female face Sphinx glanced at Azul and then turned to Gini, saying, "You can definitely teach him well, right?" Gini nodded and said, "Of course, otherwise I wouldn't have thought so much when I found the blue dragon egg. In that case, I'll reluctantly help you prepare food for a few days." At this point, the conversation between the young brass dragon and the female face Sphinx has ended. After the female face Sphinx left, Gini immediately lowered his head to Azur and said, "Here, I apologize to the future desert ruler, hoping that they will not be angry about their actions just now." Upon hearing Gini address him, Azul was immediately amused. "What do you think of the future desert rulers, Az?" "I won't be angry about this small matter yet, I have a lot of courage." "That's good," Gini chuckled lightly. As evening approached, the female face Sphinx came to Azer and the others again. She brought a lot of food, most of which were wild camels from the desert. Seeing so much meat, Azur appeared quite happy. Even if he didn't deliberately disguise himself, it could still make the female Sphinx think that he was currently a blue dragon beast that only knew how to eat, drink, and sleep, full of wild instincts. Gini, I hope you get better soon. I'll leave first and come to see you tomorrow. Okay, Gini nodded at the female face of Sphinx. Subsequently, the female face Sphinx left here, and Azer and Gini also began to enjoy today's dinner. The two dragons each used their own breath to prepare their own camel meat. The breath of two dragons can make a total of 2 dishes, one is electric roasted camel meat, and the other is barbecued camel meat. A tingling sensation. Azer tasted the electric roasted camel meat he made with lightning breath, and then grabbed another piece of meat and ran to Gini's side to borrow a fire. Azir, what are you doing here? Gini asked in confusion. Borrow a fire. Azer handed his camel meat to the other party. Don't you also know how to breathe fire? I can't control my fire well, I can accidentally blow up camel meat. Even if the explosive curse uses the minimum power, it cannot be used for grilling meat. Okay, then I'll lend you some. After speaking, Gini spewed flames and roasted his original camel meat, as well as the camel meat that Azer handed him. Give it back to you. After taking the roasted camel meat, Azer immediately stuffed it into his mouth and accidentally ate it, making his mouth full of oil. He feels that the taste of grilled meat is also quite good, but as a blue dragon, the taste still feels that camel meat cooked with lightning and electricity is superior. Just as Azer was happily chewing on the camel meat in his mouth, a cold voice rang out from behind his ear. As a blue dragon, I can actually play well with the brass dragon. This is really the first time I've seen it. Who? Azer was frightened and quickly turned around. Azir turned around and found nothing behind him. Azer, what's wrong? The young brass dragon looked at Azer, who suddenly turned around, with a bewildered expression on his face and said, What, who? There's no one behind you. Azer said this to his own Gini when he met, and he no longer felt so nervous. He slowly relaxed and said, Maybe I had a hallucination. I didn't know who was talking behind my ear just now. Gini nodded and said, Then you really might have hallucinated. After all, I didn't see anything behind you. Let's continue eating. Okay. Soon, both dragons were full. Gini, who was sent back to his lair by the female face Sphinx before the big meal began to sigh. This was the first time he had eaten so well since coming to the desert. I haven't eaten so much for a long time. I really want to sleep now, but Azer, you're still by my side. How did you fly away? Faced with Gini's complaints, Azer ignored them and continued flying towards the ground. After landing, he heard the same sound as before. What you heard before was not hallucination, Azir. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. The Soul of the Ancient Blue Dragon. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. The Soul of the Ancient Blue Dragon. What you heard before was not hallucination, Azir. Azir, who heard the previous sound, looked around but still did not notice the presence of the sound. However, what he can be certain of is that the other party is speaking dragon language. In other words, the other party is more or less related to dragons, regardless of whether they are dragons or not. Who the hell are you? Azer asked calmly. If it were the enemy, it wouldn't have been so long before they started attacking him. Plus, Gini couldn't hear the sound, so he thought the other party was just coming at him. Who am I? That's how every blue dragon born in the Sataka Desert asks me. I'm quite willing to answer this question. After the other person's voice disappeared, a huge blue dragon phantom suddenly appeared in front of Azer, startling him greatly. Are you too scared to speak? It's a bit, Azer said as he looked up at the huge blue dragon phantom. The huge blue dragon phantom in front of the blue dragon chick is roughly estimated to be 40 meters long from beginning to end. This means that this is a blue dragon from the stage of an ancient dragon, standing at the peak of a normal true dragon. Are you a guardian? Azer asked. The so-called guardian is a dragon that turns its body into a part of the scenery, which is a privilege for elderly dragons and above. After the dragon eats its treasure trove, it can choose to become a guardian and turn its body into a part of the scenery. This is a way to leave the world with dignity, and not all dragons will slowly wait for their end. The dragon that becomes a guardian will transform into geographical features such as hills, mountains, lakes, swamps, and forests, which are often places where dragons like to lay eggs. It is said that the nest of dragon eggs born in such a place will never be disturbed, and the young dragons living in such a place will establish close contact with the souls of their guardians. And now, the phantom of the ancient blue dragon appearing in front of Azir is a guardian of the ancient blue dragon, and this phantom is the soul of the other party. Of course I am the guardian, my name is Hermes, the ancient blue dragon. Hermes nodded. Upon hearing the other person reveal their identity, Azir showed a look that was exactly what it was. No wonder you, an old man, would choose to become a guardian instead of going to the divine kingdom of Tiamat and serving as a servant to make yourself immortal. The ancient blue dragon in front of Azir was the strange ancestor he had told Gini before, the blue dragon of the neutral and orderly camp. It seems like you're thinking something impolite, Azir, Hermes mercilessly exposed Azir's thoughts. Even without using mind reading, I know what you're thinking, because you blue dragon chicks thought the same way when they first met me. Even my great achievements in this desert cannot prevent you from thinking that I am not a normal blue dragon. Azir just smiled and didn't say anything about it. Then, he shifted the topic. Speaking of which, in places where the same type of guardian exists, shouldn't dragon eggs have the effects of avoiding detection and mirage? Why was I discovered by that young brass dragon before I was born? What exactly happened in this desert before I was born? Hermes smiled and said, let's answer the first two questions first. The effect is there, but the young brass dragon was lucky and happened to kick you while wandering in the desert. I always feel a bit nonsensical. It's really a bit nonsensical. Let's talk about what happened before you were born. We have to start with that female face Sphinx. Isn't she guarding the gods' things? That's right, it made me look hostile towards her at first. Azir nodded. I think there is also a record in your dragon inheritance about Cass, old blue dragon, being angry and driving away the female face Sphinx, right? It was precisely because of his actions that he planted the root of trouble for himself. His behavior was nothing more than a confrontation with the gods, and the existence he provoked was a dwarf god with powerful divine power. In addition, when he was young, he was hired by a certain country to participate in war, causing the lives of the enemy country to suffer. Then, the descendants of the enemy country came together with the legends sent by the dwarf god, as well as some metal dragons, to deal with him. I can only say that Cass is really getting confused as he gets older. I really don't understand why he wants to drive away the female face Sphinx. Azir said slowly, it seems that you have developed feelings for the former rulers of the Sataka desert. After all, he was also someone I watched grow up with. If there were no emotions, it wouldn't make sense at all. Although our relationship as dragons is indifferent, I still feel sorry for his passing. I think he should have been made into many, many dragon scales and armor by now. Haha. Hermes was amused by his own cold joke. Azir, do you know what the female Sphinx guards? Azir was still a bit curious about the matter. Speaking of this matter, the ancient blue dragon Hermes raised his head high. Of course I know, after all, I am the first blue dragon on this main material plane to pass the test, and also the only blue dragon to pass. So, what exactly is that? That's a spell invented by the dwarf god, Hermes said seriously. After obtaining this spell, I've been thinking about how to use it. Finally, I applied it to a powerful career path. Azir asked in confusion, have you opened up a new profession? Taiku Blue Dragon Shadow shook his head and said, no, I just used the spell of the dwarf god to improve a certain advanced class of our dragons. The so-called advanced professions of dragons are exclusive to dragons and cannot be employed by other non-dragon species. Standard professions, such as warriors, have many abilities that dragons cannot use, such as specialization in weapons. Do you dare to imagine a blue dragon fighting with a small sword in its original state? Therefore, the benefits provided by standard professions are negligible for most dragons, but advanced professions of dragons can give them powerful powers that other dragons without advanced professions cannot imagine. Which advanced profession did you improve on? Faced with Azur's question, Taiku Blue Dragon's shadow did not tell him, but instead asked him not to ask this question. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Azur's full name. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Azur's full name. I wouldn't have told you this question so early. Unless you pass the test of the female face Sphinx, you won't be able to succeed in your employment, even if the things protected by the other party are no longer there. Azur, who had been satisfied with his appetite but had not tasted the answer, felt a little disappointed. However, the following passage from Hermes shattered Azur's disappointment. You don't have to feel disappointed about it, even if you don't know what advanced profession it is now, you will still know that the dragon inheritance of the young dragon does not record the detailed content of those advanced professions in the future. The only thing I can tell you now is that if you want to work towards the advanced profession I am improving on, you must prepare a large amount of treasure. Money. Azur, deeply influenced by penguins, immediately smelled a strange smell and asked in response, is more better? Creating happiness with salary, having no money to play with you. It looks like you're quite on the right track, Hermes said with a meaningful smile, but these treasures are not meant for my tuition, otherwise I wouldn't choose to become a guardian. All I want to see is the smiles of the blue dragons, whether it's a kind smile or a malicious smile. Living for too long is occasionally a worry. In short, all you need to do is accumulate treasure. After all, the spell of the dwarf god is related to wealth. I have written it down. I will work hard to accumulate treasure. Azur nodded. Just act within your means, don't force yourself too hard. Being too greedy will only lead to self-destruction. In the thousands of years of becoming a guardian, I have seen too many such cases. If it were you, I might not have to worry too much. After all, our goddess of wealth has agreed to the divine oath you have made. You should know that the dragon god that this goddess dislikes the most is the five-colored dragon mother and the evil dragon god. The wealth goddess does not like the naked greed exhibited by the other party. If you were also so greedy, your god's oath would probably not be accepted, so it's like this. Speaking of which, why can the god's oath be held without the last section of his true name? The most puzzling part of Azur is that even though the format is incorrect, it can still make the oath of God come true. Well, I've filled in your real name for you, said Hermes proudly. Even though I'm dead, I'm still the favorite of the goddess of wealth's five-colored dragon and one of her few five-colored dragon priests. The improvement of that advanced profession was also achieved with the help of the goddess of wealth. The spell placed by the dwarf god here cannot be analyzed by anyone, at least not when I obtain it. In terms of magic, I can be considered a rather dull ancient blue dragon. Azur is not very interested in the long string of self-boasting about Hermes, as he is just a weak blue dragon chick. What he is interested in now is what the last section of his real name is. So, what exactly is the last section of my real name? Hermes replied expressionlessly, unfortunately, the last section of your real name is different from mine. It's the name of an ancestral red dragon. He is the largest dragon under the hands of the five-colored dragon mother, with a total length of 328 feet, 100 meters. His name is Galakran, and he is an ancestral red dragon with only muscles and food in his mind. It's said to be an ancestral red dragon, but his behavior is not much different from an ordinary white dragon. Hermes did not like the red dragon because his memories with it were not very good. He was once caught back in his lair by a fierce female red dragon in his early years. Afterwards, the dragon fell into darkness. Strictly speaking, Hermes loves and hates the red dragon. When the abyss invaded this world, he was protected by the female red dragon, but the other side refused. So, your full name is Azur Ramses Galakran. Hermes announced this to Aza. Is Aza Ramses Galakrone true? Aza fell into contemplation. I always feel like my full name is connected by a bunch of strange names. Just as Aza was thinking, Hermes's phantom suddenly poked Aza's little head with its paw tip. Stop talking nonsense, it's time for us to get down to business. Upon hearing these words, Azir looked bewildered. What's the point? Didn't you tell the young brass dragon that you lost all your spell knowledge? The phantom of the ancient blue dragon raised its head high and said, Now, let your great ancestor, Hermes, teach you how to learn spells hand in hand. Let's learn again tomorrow. I'm tired today. Azir walked to his underground lair on his own. For a young dragon, he has already been active enough today and is really tired. Hermes sighed and said, I really can't see you tomorrow night. After speaking, Hermes disappeared from here. The next morning, Azir, like yesterday evening, ate electric or barbecue camel meat, and then listened to Gini, a young brass dragon, telling the story of the Sataka Desert. From Gini's mouth, it was learned that the indigenous people of the Sataka Desert have gradually begun to migrate back here. The so-called indigenous people actually refer to some races before the restoration of the blue dragon family in the Sataka Desert, such as humans, orcs, elves, and other races living in the Sataka Desert. Just like the succession of dynasties, the blue dragon family was defeated and scattered, and these races would return to the oasis of this desert. A powerful blue dragon has occupied this place, and they will migrate and live in other places, which sounds like they are nomadic. However, the duration of this nomadic stay is relatively long, depending on whether there is a powerful blue dragon occupying this desert. In short, Gini warned Azir not to go out and not to expose himself as much as possible. Those so-called indigenous people cannot allow a blue dragon to grow on this land. If you want to go out for action, it's best to be with him. The blue dragon beast servant status of the bronze dragon can provide Aza with the greatest protection. After all, metal dragons are different from five-colored dragons. If metal dragons are provoked, it is likely to become a situation of hitting the small, coming the old, or hitting the old, coming the older. The selfish five-colored dragon is nothing more than an orphan, and the only thing that can bring them together is their interests. They cannot help in vain. After discussing the current situation in the Sataka Desert, Azir and Gini had another discussion. How to make money. I have been feeling unwell recently and have recently recovered. I will start double shifts tomorrow. Sickness, nausea, end of this chapter.